Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is MUSAU MattmeachamJR broadcasting from Kigali, Rwanda, East Central Africa. The thing that basically I'm really concerned with personally is the formula that I have been working on. And if you have been keeping up with me, you know that I have been working on a formula. The motive behind, excuse me, the motive behind my working on this formula is that I would like to isolate a formula to save humanity. I know people are talking about all kind of things these days, but I want to talk about E equal MC squared. Basically, actually, directly, I don't really want to talk about E equal MC squared. I want to talk about the reaction or the response to E equal MC squared. Let's do a quick review. If you have been following me, you know that I have claimed that the formula E equal MC squared is responsible for our scientific miseries. Those miseries considering, uh, one, the preservation of humanity. Now, I've already established this concept or this idea, or this premise, that E equal MC squared is basically responsible for the atomic bomb and all the other type of bombs that can kill millions and millions of people. The only time in history that an atomic bomb was used was in World War II, when the United States of America dropped two atomic bombs on Japan. And that was it was over 20, 30, 40, it was many, many years ago. In fact, it was before I was born when the American government dropped two atomic bombs on Japan. So I know we're talking about at least maybe 80 years ago. And it's my position that if you can drop a bomb 80 years ago and it can do that much damage to a human population, imagine what a bomb like that would do today. The capacity, one bomb could wipe out a whole country. A whole country could be wiped out with a nuclear weapon. So I uh, came upon this. Uh, I decided that why don't I try to isolate a formula? Why can't I isolate a formula that will reverse man's contemplations? That is the murdering of other human souls. I look at a lot of the old movies of the of Germany, and I look at what the things that the Nazis did to people Hitler and his crew, and they didn't have the atomic bomb. And I look at the things that these Nazis did to other human beings. It's hard to believe that it happened, but it did. It was a reality. Somewhere in the mind of Adolf Hitler, he conceived of so much human destruction. Human beings being baked in ovens, human beings being experimented on as though they were some insects or grasshoppers. The things that the Nazis did to the Jews in Germany uh, prior to World War II is unimaginable. The things that they did to human beings. Now, if a man can do those things without a nuclear weapon, imagine what a man would do with a nuclear weapon. Over 6 million human beings were tortured, mutilated, and the things that the Nazis did to these people who they captured and put into those concentration camps. It's incredible, unbelievable. And you want to say, how can another human being do this to another human being? So I'm convinced that even today, there are those type of mentalities that exist in the minds of men, but they have no type of uh, uh, respect for the human body, for the human soul, for the human being. And they would do anything given the possibility. So I know from my study of history and my observation of the things that happen in history, I am totally convinced that a nuclear weapon will be used against humanity. There will be an individual who will decide to say, look, I can kill 100 million people. And this person will attempt to do it. And whoever it is, or whatever nation that makes that decision, yes, many people will die. So what do we do? Well, me as a member of the human race, uh, me, I would like to get into contemplations on how to serve humanity, how to preserve humanity. So I've been contemplating on a formula, and I think that I have three variables. My formula is I. The variables in my formula are I, C, and L. I got three variables. Einstein had three variables. Now, if you look at the variable, okay, let's look at the equation. E equal mc squared. It looks quite simple because you're looking at what? You're looking at three variables and a number. Okay, E, a variable, equal, an equal sign, E equal M a variable, C, another variable, then squared. When we look at this formula, it looks quite simple, but but you cannot judge a book by its cover. So with three variables and an equal sign and several operations, some kind of way, the scientists prior to World War II figured out a way to make a bomb of mass destruction. And that was what, almost over 80 years ago. My formula, which it is simplistic, three variables and several operations. But the I think that we are blinded by the three when we see the three variables. E equal mc squared. Oh, it looks so simple. But when you actually investigate the implications of those three variables, I mean, I think what happened is when you really look at that equation, E equal MC squared, and really get into it, I bet you get into all kind of other variables. I mean, I think if when you really look at it, when I'm not a scientist. I do consider myself an artist, but I'm saying that if it's E equal MC squared, and an E equal MC squared can yield bombs of mass destruction, but if we get deeper and deeper into those three variables and the operation, I bet it gets much more complicated. I think if you were at the board in a physics classroom, you start with E equal MC squared. I bet when you really finish on that board, I bet it'd be almost hundreds of variables on the board just to explain those three variables and the operation. So I have my three variables, and what I'll do with those three variables is that I would experiment with them and investigate with them. Okay, let's look at those three variables. I for infinitive, C for communication, and L for love. Now, I can really talk about the L variable immediately because okay, I think that L is essential. Why is the L essential? L also means, okay, if L is love is compassion. Compassion. So we're talking about the human specimen. And if you followed me earlier, you must remember that I talked about the word compassion. Where did that compassion, love equals compassion, compassion for humanity? What does that mean to us? Love. Love was a concept that was preached by a theologian, the theologian Jesus Christ. That was his main platform. Love. His teachings were about love. So I pulled that particular variable out because I think that's essential. So in my formula, L means love, and we're talking about the love for humanity. We're talking about compassion for our fellow man. So we can deal with that L variable, but we still got two other variables to deal with. Infinitive. Infinitive equals everlasting. And everlasting is a theological type concept. Everlasting equals everlasting. Okay. E means forever. Okay. Now, what we would all like to live forever, some of us. Now we got L for compassion for humanity. Then we have I for everlasting, infinitive, infinitive. The infinite equals everlasting. So we got E for everlasting, L for love. Then the other one is C. C in my concept, C means communication. So somewhere I have to figure out all those other things that this LC I mean. We got love, and then we got communication. Communication, mankind, and communication. Communication is essential. It looks sociological, but I think it's still physical science. So In my thinking and in my contemplations, that's where I'm at. I'm at L equals love, which is compassion. C equals communication. All of us as mankind, we should communicate. And then infinitive, which is everlasting. We can make that a theological term because we see everlasting, okay, Christians in the Bible. So basically, my concept is a theological, sociological, scientific thing. Now, those are things that I'm contemplating. Outside of contemplating those things, I contemplate things like the things that are happening in Africa. What is the problem in Africa? Why does God, or why did God put black people on the continent of Africa, the richest continent on earth? And yet those same black people were on the continent of Africa or enslaved by others from another part of the earth. I was listening to a story about Biko. Biko, I think it's Biko. You know, I have issues with pronouncing names, Biko, but he was, um, if any of you have studied history, you will run across the name of Biko. He was a black South African young man, and he was tortured and killed by the white South Africans during apartheid. And I was listening to, I was watching one of the YouTube networks, and they were doing a story about Biko, and it puts me into contemplations. You see, I'm a 73-year-old black man, and I was born when I was born in a period of segregation. I was born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, USA, 1915. So if you can just put that in your mind, you can see where in history I came into existence. So my existence came around. I was well aware of what Martin Luther King was doing, what Malcolm X was doing. I was That's the age that I grew up in. Uh, and the thing is, I know segregation, and I grew up in it. And the thing is, now that I'm older man, I make contemplations and I wonder what is wrong? Why is it that the black people are were having such a hard time? Why was everybody kicking their ass? Everybody was kicking black people's ass. I mean, for 400 years, white people would go into Africa and take black people out of Africa and take them to America, and they built America. And those black people were not paid anything. I mean, they actually built America, roads. They built Washington D.C. And those black folks who they took out of Africa got not one penny. And well, your own mama was subject to being raped by a white man. So that whole thing about family union, it was totally destroyed once that black slave got on the American soil. By the way, even when they were bringing those black Africans out of Africa to the U.S., remember they call them Indians. There were black people already in America who were living in America. So what happened is the white European just took over the world, kicking ass. He would Everywhere he go, he would just kick ass and take the land. So you think you wonder why? Why did they have the privilege of kicking black people's ass and taking their women and making homosexuals out of their boys, taking the land? I mean, the guys come from Portugal. Portugal is, and I don't even think it's the size of Florida. And they would go into a country like Angola and just kick ass and just take over the country. And they had nothing in Europe. And most of the African colonies were double, double the size of the European countries who control them. So you say, why, how did they get, why did that happen in history? I want to talk about that, but I'm not going to talk about it now. I'm going to say, this is Matt Meacham Jr. signing off in Kigali, Rwanda.